It all started when I moved into my new apartment. The place was perfect, affordable, quiet, and in a great neighborhood. My neighbor, Mr. Grayson, seemed nice enough. He was an older man, always polite, always smiling. But there was something about him that felt off. His smile never reached his eyes, and he had this habit of staring just a little too long. One night, I was sitting in my living room watching TV when I noticed something strange. My curtains were slightly open, and through the gap, I saw movement. It was Mr. Grayson, standing in his window, staring directly into my apartment. I quickly closed the curtains, my heart racing. I told myself it was nothing. Maybe he was just looking out his window. But the next night, it happened again. And the night after that. I started to feel uneasy. I began closing my curtains as soon as the sun went down, but it didn't stop him. He would stand there, motionless, for hours. I tried to avoid him during the day, but he always seemed to find a way to cross my path. He'd ask me strange questions, like what time I went to bed, or if I lived alone. I started locking my doors and windows, but I couldn't shake the feeling that he was watching me. One evening, I came home late from work and found a note slipped under my door. It was written in messy, scrawled handwriting, "I know your routine." My blood ran cold. I called the police, but they said there wasn't much they could do without proof. I installed security cameras the next day, hoping to catch him in the act. A few nights later, I was woken up by a loud noise. I checked the cameras and saw Mr. Grayson standing outside my door, trying to turn the handle. I called the police, and they arrived just in time to catch him. When they searched his apartment, they found photos of me, hundreds of them. Some were taken through my windows, others from the hallway. He had been watching me for months. I moved out the next week, but I still can't shake the feeling that someone is watching me. Even now, years later, I always double-check my locks and curtains, because I know how close I came to something much worse. I lived in an old apartment building with a basement unit that had been empty for years. That changed when a new neighbor moved in. I never saw him, but I could hear him. Footsteps late at night, strange noises, and sometimes faint whispers. I tried to ignore it, but the sounds kept getting louder. One night, I was woken up by a loud banging noise. It sounded like it was coming from the basement. My heart was pounding as I grabbed a flashlight and went downstairs to investigate. The door to the basement unit was slightly open, and I could hear someone moving around inside. I called out, "Hello? Is anyone there?" But there was no answer. Just silence. I pushed the door open and stepped inside. The apartment was empty. No furniture, no lights, just a single chair in the middle of the room. On the chair was a notebook. I opened it, and my hands started shaking. It was a diary, but not a normal one. It was filled with details about me, my schedule, my habits, even things I had said in my own apartment. My heart was racing as I flipped through the pages. And then I saw it. On the last page, written in messy, scrawled handwriting, "I'm always listening." I dropped the notebook and ran back to my apartment, my breath coming in short gasps. I called the police, and they searched the basement unit, but they found no one. The landlord said no one had rented the apartment in years. I moved out the next day, but I still can't shake the feeling that someone was down there, watching me, listening to me, and I'll never know who or what it was. When I moved into my new house, I was excited to meet my neighbors. The family next door seemed perfect, friendly, welcoming, and always willing to lend a hand. But as time went on, I started to notice strange things. They would argue late at night, their voices echoing through the walls, and their kids. There was something off about them. They never spoke, just stared at me with these cold, empty eyes. One night, I was woken up by a loud crash. I looked out my window and saw the father standing in his backyard, holding a shovel. He was digging a hole, and the way he moved, it was almost mechanical. I watched as he dropped something into the hole and covered it up. My heart was pounding. I told myself it was nothing, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. The next morning, I went outside to check the spot where he had been digging. The ground was freshly turned, but there was no sign of what he had buried. I tried to forget about it, but the family's behavior kept getting stranger. They would stand in their windows, watching me, and sometimes I would catch them whispering to each other when they thought I wasn't looking. One evening, I came home to find a note on my doorstep. It was written in messy, scrawled handwriting, "Stay out of our business." My blood ran cold. I called the police, but they said there wasn't much they could do without proof. I started to feel like I was being watched, even in my own home. I installed security cameras, hoping to catch them in the act, but all I ever saw were shadows moving in their windows. A few nights later, I was woken up by a loud knock on my door. I looked through the peephole and saw the father standing there, holding a shovel. His face was blank, his eyes empty, like he wasn't even human. I didn't answer, but he just stood there, staring at the door. I called the police, and when they arrived, they found him digging in his backyard again. This time, they searched the hole and found something. A box filled with photos of me, taken from inside my house. Some were through my windows, others from my living room, even my bedroom. I felt sick. How long had they been watching me? How much did they know? The police questioned the family, but they denied everything. They said the box wasn't theirs, that someone must have planted it. But I knew better. I moved out the next day, but I still can't shake the feeling that they're watching me. Even now, years later, I always double-check my locks and windows, because I know how close I came to something much worse. So guys, these stories remind us that sometimes the scariest things are closer than we think. Whether it's a neighbor watching from their window, a voice whispering from the shadows, or a family hiding dark secrets, danger can be right next door. Stay safe, stay alert, and always trust your instincts, because you never know who or what might be watching.